Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 820A, and today's date is November 17th, 2015, and the title of this episode is Putin says U.S. secretive closed-door TPP policy does not facilitate Asia-Pacific growth. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, we see the stock market really didn't go anywhere today. The high-frequency traders, the plunge protection team, they did whatever they could. But if we notice over the last couple of days, what they've been trying to do is they're trying to keep this market stable at this point. Because you have to remember, the stock market is their way of letting the world know that the economy is doing well, which is kind of meaningless because this really doesn't give you a gauge of what the economy is doing at all. And what they're using it for is to keep everyone in the dark of what's really going on here. Now, the people in this country are starting to realize that the economy isn't doing as well as the government is saying. As we know, the numbers are completely separating from their statistical information. And we're realizing that the cost of owning a home, the cost of owning an automobile, the cost of having health insurance continually goes up. And this is where we see a lot of people spending their money, because what we're seeing right now is healthcare and housing costs have surged. And this is the biggest rise in core consumer prices in the last 16 months. And of course, the U.S. government says we don't see any inflation anywhere. Well, if they went to the supermarkets and they look at the healthcare premiums, we're seeing inflation. And we have to realize what's going on here. As the start of 2015, maybe going back to 2014, the U.S. government central bankers have been doing whatever they possibly could to keep this economy going. They realized they needed to bring the oil prices down because all the transportation of goods, airlines, shipping, trucks, and everything else, the oil prices were too high. And if they kept them at that level, businesses right now would be going completely bust. They would just completely fold. There's more agendas associated with why they're continually pushing the oil prices down. One of them is being that Russia deals in oil, and they were putting a lot of pressure on Russia, trying to destroy the economy of Russia, to say, okay, we will not do anything in Ukraine, we will not do anything around the world, we are sorry, please stop producing so much oil and give our economy back. But it looks like at this point, their agenda is not working. And this only bought them a few more months of keeping this economy alive. Because the world doesn't need all of this oil at this point. And Saudi Arabia is continually pumping and pushing as much as they possibly can out to the world. Here in the United States, we are seeing so many different things where the economy is completely falling apart. The last couple of months, we've been seeing home builder sentiment continually rising, which didn't make sense because new construction, existing home sales, lumber prices, they're all falling. And the builders are saying, we just have hope. We just have hope. Well, that has just turned around. Home builder sentiment has plunged now. November saw it drop to 62. This is the first drop since May. And now it comes in line with what's really going on in the market. We see that lumber prices are continually falling. New home sales are continually falling. Existing home sales falling. And now the builders are looking and saying, okay, the real estate market isn't as strong as we thought, and our hope is fading. And as we go through this winter, we're going to see real estate really take a hit. And this is going to be a complete disaster. Now, if the Fed decides to raise the interest rates in December, real estate will be completely done. Now, will it be done the moment this happens? Absolutely not. It will push a lot of people out of the market, which will mean there will be less sales, which means that existing home sales, new construction, mortgage applications will all decline, which will then go into Home Depot, Lowe's, furnishing, appliances, And it's just a cascading effect. But of course, as we know, the Fed, if they do raise the interest rates, it will hurt the economy. Of course, they'll continue to convince us that it did nothing to the economy but help it. And when they announce they're going to raise it once again, this is what will bring down the economy, but they will not let it get that far because they'll never raise it for the second time. Now we see industrial production growth has completely slumped. October's industrial production dropped by 0.2%, missing expectations of 0.1%. This is the 9th month in a row that this happened. The weakest growth since January of 2010. This is flashing a depression signal. I mean, if we look at manufacturing, industrial production, retail sales, it is all falling apart. The Baltic Dry Index fell again another 13 points. We're down to 537. This is the raw material that all the manufacturers use to create these goods to ship out to the businesses, to the stores, so people can purchase. And what we're seeing right now is a complete and steady decline of everything. I mean, manufacturing in the United States at this point is pretty much done. And the problem is, the U.S. doesn't have gold. The country that has the gold is going to win in the end, because they can use that gold to back their currency. And if you have gold and you have it backed, if you have your currency backed by it and you have manufacturing, you'll be okay. This is what the United States had after World War II. Gold, the reserve currency, and manufacturing. Because after the war, Europe was pretty much demolished and the U.S. was untouched. And we were able to build and produce. Right now, the U.S. does not have this. Gold right now has tumbled for 14th of the 15 days since February 2010. They are continually pushing gold down. Because if gold rises, this is an indication that there's something going on in the economy. They want everyone convinced that this economy is fine. They don't want people taking their money and putting it into precious metals. They want everyone taking their money and putting it into stocks, into real estate. And this is why they're continually doing this. This also helps the elite purchase as much as they possibly can. Now, Citigroup's City Surprise Index, CSI, is a real-time model designed to analyze the accuracy of Wall Street's economic forecasts. A positive index value indicates that the recent economic data is stronger than the consensus of economists. A negative reading denotes economic data which is worse than expectations. And what we're seeing right now is that economists have been consistently overestimating the strength of the economy this year. The magnitude of their misses is not particularly worsened, but volatility measures and the recent record number of consecutive negative readings are suggesting that economists' models are losing their grasp on the real state of the economy. And right before the crash in 2008, they were very optimistic about the economy, saying that things look good, real estate was strong, everything was okay. The market was continually holding steady or going up at around 14,000 points. And then in an instant, everything came to a crashing end. Now we understand the president is pushing the TPP, which we know does not help the people of the world at all. It helps the corporations, the central bankers. And we see that there are activists out there who are protesting in Washington, D.C., in front of the offices of Morgan Stanley. protesters pushed by the company's security as they charged into the building. And we see right now that Morgan Stanley is one of those U.S. companies who supports the TPP and has spent almost $10 million on lobbying for this legislation. And anti-TPP rallies are going to be held in Washington throughout this week. But of course, the corporate media is not covering this whatsoever. They don't want you to know about this. Most of the people who know about the TPP are completely against it. Countries around the world are protesting against the TPP. Putin is out there, and he's saying this closed-door TPP-style talks does not facilitate any type of Asian-Pacific growth. He says what we need is deeper regional integration carried out openly and based on mutual consensus. This is the key to spurring Asian-Pacific economic growth. And he's absolutely right. Keeping everything confidential, keeping everything a secret, keeping it so corporations and central banks benefit while the people don't, does not spur economic growth. But I think the U.S. and the central bankers, they understand this. They realize that as this system implodes, they want all the countries to come in line with them for control. That's what they're doing right now. This is the last attempt to keep this economy alive by taking away all control from every single person and bringing all the funds flowing here to the United States. Jobs are not going to be flowing here, if that's what everyone thinks, because as we've seen, part of the TPP is to bring in people from other countries to work here in the United States, but they do not have to pay them the U.S. wages. They can pay them in whatever country they came from, in their wages, which will make it worse for the everyday person living here in the United States because they will not be able to compete with those workers. So they will be out of work, and they will continually bring in third world workers into the United States because they are preparing the United States to become a third world nation. Because the dollar, once it collapses and it loses its value and ceases to be the reserve currency, this is what the United States will end up to be. There's no manufacturing here. There is absolutely nothing. And this is what they're preparing everyone in the end here, because what is going to happen, our way of life will completely change. And the only way to change this is to go to the root of the problem. And that is the central banks, the private Western central banks, the ones who have caused all of this. If we do not remove them, this will not change. We will be in this situation forever, and this cycle will just continue on and on. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.